Welcome to the Farm to School podcast, where you will hear stories of how youth thrive and farmers prosper when we learn how to grow, cook, and eat delicious, nutritious local foods in schools across the country
and the world. Hi, everybody. We're your hosts. I'm Rick Sherman.
And I'm Michelle Marcus-Stein, and we are super excited today. We have Sam Koentopp. He is the Senior Director of Programs at Big Green. Hi, Sam.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
Great. We're excited to talk to you today on this. I don't know, is it sunny where you are at the time of this recording?
And where are you?
Yeah.
So I'm in Chicago. It is sunny right now at this moment in Chicago. It's a beautiful day here. It's hot. Big Green is based in Denver, Colorado, though. So we do work spanning the whole country.
Oh my gosh. Well, tell us about Big Green. What is it you do? How do you do it, and why?
Yeah, so we're a national organization. We do our work through sharing gardens, grants, and gatherings in all the places where we work. And our mission behind all of that is the idea that growing food changes lives. And so we want to give everybody the opportunity to grow food and explore that and build on that in all of the ways that make sense to the people themselves and in the context of the communities where everybody is. So kind of how that's done isn't really Big Green's it's not our interest. What we're really excited about is just creating those opportunities and opening up doors for people to do more of it.
You said that growing food changes lives, and it says that all over your website. If you go to your website, which we'll leave a link in the show notes, everybody, but the first thing it says that I saw that jumped out at me, it says, let's get everyone in America growing food. And the second thing is what we were calling this episode, Growing Food Changes Lives. So our podcast, we are into the specific school garden world and farm to school. You deal with that too, school gardens, but also teaching people to grow at home too. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, for sure. So on the school gardening side, that's really where our organization started all of our work. Back in 2011, the first gardens we built, we were focused on specific parts of the country. I joined the organization in 2013 here in Chicago to support us to build 200 gardens in Chicago public schools. And we were doing that work in cities all over the country. And so in that work, we developed a model for school gardens that is super easy, super simple, that can be built like by a third grade classroom, for instance, in a couple hours, like something that is not going to be an extra burden for schools to be able to take on, for teachers to be able to use. It's like the easy button of a school garden.
Yeah, but like what makes your model so much easier than a different model? I'm curious about that. How does it make it so simple?
Yeah, so we manufacture our garden beds. They're a really accessible shape and size for young people, for anybody. They're about just over knee height, so really easy to use. They are modular, so they can be configured in all kinds of different shapes to fit different spaces available in different schoolyards. They have an irrigation system that comes with the garden and is really simple to install. We provide all the detailed instructions, and kind of somebody who's never dealt with an irrigation system before can put it together the same way you would install, put together a Lego kit or something like that. And then also we source just amazing, beautiful soil and fertilizer, and we help to curate seeds that work in local environments. We just help to solve all of the most common problems that arise in the garden. And we do it in kind of the right size, right? So our gardens aren't huge either. They're, maybe 100 square feet of growing space at a school environment. So enough so that a classroom could be in and use as an outdoor classroom space, but not so much that it actually is a chore and a challenge to maintain and manage and keep it from becoming overwhelming.
There's something to be said about that, because I've seen it happen before where you bite off more than you can chew, so to speak, and people have this grandiose plan, and it's like, we're going to do an acre, and then it's like, maybe we should start with some containers and like a raised bed and see if we can do that well before we go crazy. So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, sure. Well, I was just going to say that that idea of making gardens easy is is part of how we also support community and home gardens. So Rick, you were asking if I could talk a little about the home garden piece.
Yeah.
In During COVID, nobody was at school. So the school gardens that we were growing, some of them were in production to help support food access. Is so critical, like always, and especially kind of was a really pressing issue during COVID. But we also wanted to help serve people where they were, which was at home. So we distributed small 5-gallon like grow bag garden kits that kind of it's the same philosophy as our larger container gardens, just easy to go. Here's the container, here's the soil, here's the seeds, here's the guide, like get to it, add water and go. We distributed them through our school network so that teachers could be growing something at home. And then, on their Zoom classes, students would be able to, go by the school and pick up their kits and bring them home. And
That's awesome.
From that, we kind of continued to just expand on that idea. And it's still critical for people to grow in homes and in communities. Something we really try to do in our work is to build a culture in a place, to support a culture in a place that connects us all to food. So if a young person or a family is seeing a school garden in their school, and then they're at their local library or at their local park, and there's another garden that's the same as the one that's at school, and they're at their church or their place of worship, there's a garden there. And then there's opportunities depending on where we're working and who our partners are for people to sign up and get a garden at their house. And so just this idea that we can all work together in our community to grow food for ourselves, to help connect around food, to keep our individual and community food cultures alive, like really just to feed into that opportunity to have us all be more directly connected to growing food. And of course, with food, it doesn't just come the food, which is, the best. That's why I got into it in the first place, but also our connection to nature, our connection to each other, our connection to our heritage, our ancestors, our connection to our bodies, like all of these really valuable and important pieces that we all can get from our relationships to food.
So much good things happen when we grow together, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, that's exactly it.
Growing
And one thing leads to the other, right?
Yes. And I'm just wondering, you looked at patterns and barriers and solved for them through these turnkey solutions, which thank you for putting your creativity and brain around. It's huge, actually. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the impacts you've been able to have so far and what you're hoping for in the future.
Yeah. So I can talk about like some specific work that we've been doing. So just this past year, we were able to form a really great partnership in Savannah, Georgia, working with a local nonprofit called Loop It Up Savannah and the local school district and a whole network of early childhood centers. And we built 40 gardens in Savannah, which is the majority of the schools that are there in the district, plus 10 early childhood centers, and had additional grants to schools that already had gardens. And as a part of that work, one of the things that was happening in Savannah at the same time was different organizations were coming together to kind of reactivate their food council, their local food council. And so the network of school gardens was able to become like a part of and like some energy that helped to support kind of the direction and activation and energy that's happening around local food policy and connecting more people to food access opportunities. And so that's opening up more doors for us to then talk to our supporters and think through, okay, so now the community is organizing around farmers markets, around different food growing opportunities, around different food access ideas. How can Big Green again continue to invest in and support that energy with some continued ideas around people growing at home, people growing in different community spaces that are supporting that? We're doing similar work in San Antonio where we're working with the AME church there Raymond Bryan is the leader of that church, and kind of he's brought in the entire kind of community around the AME church in San Antonio at the same time that we're building school gardens in San Antonio Independent School District. And so like as we've been talking about those opportunities to help connect people across school districts, across like community, different places in community where people gather is really this great opportunity. And so when you ask about outcomes, it's a little bit different in each place because it has to take on meaning and value to the people who are doing the work in their community. So for Elder Bryant, his focus is addressing chronic, really food-related illnesses within the African-American community in San Antonio. So talking about diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart disease, all of those things that we know are problems directly caused by our food, and trying to build and support a culture there that helps people grow and eat healthier foods to directly address that. And kind of obviously there's the connections of the school district. And then in Savannah, it's more about a larger food policy and organization in the communities to support community health. And in the schools, it's their focus is literacy and career and college education, career technical agricultural education. And so all of the initiatives that they're doing in the schools are connected to supporting those larger district goals. So our outcomes really are around the connectivity piece and supporting the specific outcomes and kind of visions and goals that our communities are bringing to the table themselves.
And so talking about your goals and things that you're doing now, are you able to reach out to and have your program in all states, or do you have to be more selective of that? You said also on your website that, so far you've been at a number of schools, and it might be out of date or something, about 270 schools, 700 educators, 881,000 students. Where can you go with your program?
Well, so we're at a really interesting place programmatically as an organization. In the past, all of our work really was focused in areas where we had financial support. So, a lot of our donor network would raise their hands and say, hey, this is beautiful, amazing work. We'd like to bring it to Miami. We'd like to bring it to Las Vegas, wherever it is that we had those connections. And so we were able to do the work and connect with the people in those places and bring it to life. We are really excited this year to start creating more of an open process, like a RFP process almost, where different organizations can work together in their community and say, hey, we have a vision for how we'd like to expand growing food in our community. We think Big Green would be a great partner. Here's what we would like to present. And so one of the other pieces of our work that we haven't talked about yet is called the Big Green DAO. It's a network of about 200 organizations who have issued grants to them, like have opened up grants, and they have recruited the people in their community who are doing this work to apply. And then the community of people who have already been granted are the ones who vote on and decide how those grant dollars for each grant round will be spent. So, every time there's a new grant round, the community grows because the first 2-3 groups of organizations that came into the DAO were the ones who then promoted and decided who would be granted in the next round. And then that larger group then did the same thing in the next round. And so now we're at this point where we have this amazing collaboration, this amazing relationship with organizations all around the country doing grassroots work in food. And for us to be able to make some deep connections between our programmatic work in schools and homes and in communities with this network of organizations that are really doing this work in all the places around the country, and try to find those connections and build on those relationships to be able to better resource everybody, to be able to help connect the dots where maybe people were focused in one lane and hadn't had chances to do some new partnership work in ways that, you know, would connect with Big Green. All those opportunities are going to be starting to open up for us. So that's some work we're doing now to be able to really dig into and launch this fall.
Okay, thanks for sharing that, Sam.
Yeah. So we're not in 50 states yet, but you know, that I think long term that's something that we'd like to continue to expand and grow towards.
Hey, Sam, one of the things we run into with school gardens, and we hear about this, is called the 3-year love bubble. Basically, people get so excited about starting it and they get going. There's a lot of momentum. And after 3 years, they move on or there's something else. And I'm just wondering, I'm wondering what your experience is with the long-term longevity or sustainability of the different growing spaces, or like what your thoughts are around that.
Yeah, I mean, long-term sustainability is, I mean, definitely one of the big challenges in the school environment. Schools are just so fluid. There's teacher turnover, there's administrator turnover, there's turnover in district leadership. It's a very high stress, high pressure job. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, we've already talked about that. So, you know, that honeymoon phase in the garden, it can get tiring and overwhelming for one person as they're just trying to do too many things and keep them all going. And also people can leave. And so to address that, our school program model really relies heavily on strong partnerships with school districts and the buy-in and support from the leadership team. And that's, you know, for instance, the, you know, Department of Teaching and Learning identifying, hey, we have gardens at a third of the schools in our district or half of the schools in our district. We are going to intentionally create opportunities for schools to use these gardens in similar ways and support them in ways that align with our goals. That way, whenever there's change that's happening at the school, there's an understanding that, like, in third grade, in their science unit at this time of year, everyone is using the garden. In 8th grade, as part of this unit, everybody is using the garden. And it's something that's looked forward to. It's built into the systems and the structures of the district. So really, whenever we're working in a new place, one of our top priorities is building that relationship with the school district, understanding what their goals are, and helping to support them to start to build in some of those systems to support long-term sustainability of the gardens. That can also happen with a nonprofit organization as well, who has like a school garden support organization who has a very deep relationship with the school district or with a large network of schools, and they're kind of taking on that work on behalf of the district. But either way, there has to be some strong systems in place to build that sustainability. And then, you know, of course, on the nonprofit side of things, burnout and overwhelm and lack of funding and kind of all of those things are always pressure on all of us. So that's something we also, like in the DAO, we have an event every year. We call it the annual, where we bring organizations together and kind of programming built on that to support capacity building and just care in the community, so that we're not just providing funding, but we're also kind of building a foundation of support and connectivity to help us get through some of those more challenging issues that just come with like digging in and fighting for your passion every day.
I really appreciate that, because that is where it comes from too, is every piece of the system of sustainability, human sustainability, individual, community. Seems like you're really intentionally working on all those different levels.
Yeah, I mean, right, you don't have to do this work for that long to see where the struggles are, right? You don't need a ton of research to just see this is how the systems are operating and where some of the challenges are. And so, yeah, definitely we put our attention on making things easier, making things better for people so that we can continue to do this work together.
And one of the things I've noticed that's so different about you too is that scale. So, I mean, you at the beginning of this podcast said, oh, we put in 200 school gardens in Chicago. Like,
yeah,
that's a lot. That's like working at that scale. And so what's some thinking behind why 200 and not 2?
Well, I mean, you kind of just said it. If we're going to be making,
I spent my life researching school gardens. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, like if we're making changes, if I've already been talking about in our conversation about culture. Culture isn't something that you can shift one person at a time.
Right.
Culture is like a phenomenon, right? It's a movement. It's something that affects whole communities of people, whole cities of people, whole nations of people. And so we're really trying to think about shifting the culture of food and food access and what food is and how we grow it and what our connection, all of these things that are so powerful and so deep and so meaningful. It's great when that happens, 1, 10, 100 people at a time. But if we're going to be addressing some of these larger systemic issues with our food system, we need to address our culture and kind of, it's almost countercultural, right? Because what we're pushing back against is this industrial food system that it causes so many problems. It is the definition of unsustainable on so many levels. And so to be able to push back against something that's that massive, we really need people like our people to have a different understanding of food, to have a different relationship with food, to increase their food literacy, to increase the connections they have with their neighbors around what food is. And that cultural piece isn't something that you can do at a small scale. That is only achievable when you're, talking about, half the schools in a district or all the schools in a district, right? Like let's work towards those big numbers where the systems can be put in place to help counteract some of the pressures that we see from, the marketing and just hugely influential systems that we're currently, surrounded by.
Sam, Rick and I work on school gardens across the state on a statewide level every day, and hearing you talk about this again just has really re-inspired me. So thank you. I really appreciate you making the time to tell your story. And before we go, I wanted to ask you one question because I know you are so passionate about growing food. I was wondering what's your favorite thing to grow?
My favorite thing to grow is something new. Like, right? Like I have a huge garden and I'm always like, I'm a seed catalog junkie.
Yes.
So, I'm always excited about like a new perennial variety of kale or a new, I don't know, like variety of calendula that, I could put into a salve or, I'm always looking for like, what is this variety that's going to grow great in my Chicago garden and, bring a new, flavor to my life.
Love that.
I can appreciate that. I just had a dinner with you a while ago and we had watermelon radishes and I don't think I've ever seen those before. And it's like, so I started growing them in my garden after that dinner,
Wow.
So.
Totally. It's so hard to pick just one. Oh my God. There's I love the variety.
Well, Sam, we want to thank you so much for sharing your story and being our guest today. And thank you so much.
Thanks, Sam.
And we'd like to
thanks to both of you.
Yeah. And we'd like to thank everybody else for listening today. Farm to School was written, directed, and produced by Rick Sherman and Michelle Markestein and was made possible by a grant by the United States Department of Agriculture.
The content and ideas of the Farm to School podcast do not necessarily reflect the opinions of Oregon State University, Oregon Department of Education, or the United States Department of Agriculture. The USDA, Department of Education, and Oregon State University are equal opportunity providers and employers.
Do you want to learn more about Farm to School? Check out other episodes, show notes, contact information by searching Farm to School Podcast OSU.
Yeah, we really want to hear from you. So stop by and give us an idea for a future podcast.
Thanks, everybody. We'll be here for the next time you tune in.
Thanks again, Sam.
Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, bye.